Coming up today, South Korea's spy agency reports that North Korea has executed its own defense chief for insubordination. A renowned North Korea expert casts doubt over Pyongyang's claims that it recently test-fired a submarine-launched ballistic missile. Plus, dozens of people have been killed after another powerful earthquake strikes Nepal, just weeks after a devastating earthquake killed thousands in the country. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Wednesday, the 13th of May. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. And we begin with that breaking news out of North Korea. Seoul spy agency is reporting that North Korea's Defense Minister Hyon Yong-chol has been executed for treason. Let's connect straight away to our Han Dan, who's standing by for us at the news centre. Dan.
Good afternoon, Mark. Amid the continuing political instability in North Korea, we keep getting news that dozens of senior North Korean officials are being executed, mostly on charges of treason. Seoul's National Intelligence Service, in a confidential report to the parliament this morning, said that North Korea's current Defense Minister Hyon Yong-chol was executed in public on April 30th for disrespecting the country's leader, Kim Jong-un. The defense minister was reportedly shot dead with an anti-aircraft gun at a military school while hundreds of soldiers were watching. Pictures revealed Hyun dozing off during a large-scale military event, and he allegedly rejected Kim Jong-un's orders, inciting Kim's anger. This comes as a surprise, though, as Hyun, who was a four-star general, has maintained his status as the #2 man in North Korea's military until very recently. He has paid tribute to the late leader Kim Jong-un and the country's founder, Kim Il-sung, most recently at the Kumsusan Palace of the Sun last month, alongside top military officials, and also attended a series of events hosted by the Korean People's Army. Mark?
And Dan, how are people in the north assessing this and also Kim Jong-un's leadership so far?
Well, experts say that Kim Jong-un, who's entering his fourth year in power, is still struggling to attain absolute control over several military veterans. Various local sources indicate that high-ranking officials in the north believe Kim is still a young leader who does not know how to lead the country politically, economically, and militarily. Some experts are even predicting a collapse of the Kim regime within 3 years. One U.S. media outlet reported earlier that propaganda leaflets containing the message that Kim Jong-un is many times more cruel than his father Kim Jong-il have been found across the country. So, Mark, it's quite clear that the young leader is still struggling to maintain the loyalty of the military and people. Back to you, Mark.
And staying with North Korea, South Korean researchers have lent weight to expert opinion that one of the most crucial ways for Pyongyang to earn foreign currency is by sending its workers abroad. At a discussion at Washington's Korea Economic Institute of America on Tuesday, researcher Lee Seung-ju said North Korean workers get to keep 10 to 20% of what they earn from working overseas, while the rest goes straight to the regime. The president of the Database Center for North Korean Human Rights in Seoul, Yoon Yo-sang, said Pyongyang earns about $200 million annually from its workers abroad, referring to recent data published by a North Korean defector group. North Korea has reportedly dispatched up to 60,000 workers to approximately 40 countries worldwide. And North Korea's recent announcement that it successfully tested a submarine-launched ballistic missile has raised concerns over its arms capabilities, but international experts are skeptical about Pyongyang's claim. They say development of the missile is still in its early stages. Our Sun Jung-in has more.
During a meeting hosted by the website 38 North in Washington on Tuesday, a veteran North Korea military expert raised doubts about Pyongyang's self-proclaimed successful underwater ballistic missile launch. Joseph Bermudez at All Source Analysis said he believes Saturday's launch was conducted from a barge submerged a few meters below the water and not from a submarine as claimed. He cited satellite imagery showing a submarine docked next to a barge. Speaking via video conference, Bermudez said that the test seems to have been focused on checking the launch technology, which usually happens in the early stages of development with missiles like this.
Skeptical that it was actually conducted from the submarine that we've observed so far. I think it would be more likely that it would be done from a barge.
Bermudez also said he suspected the photos of the launch released by the North could be photoshopped or manipulated in some way in order to exaggerate progress in its missile development. He pointed out some inaccuracies in the image, saying the photo shows no visible flame coming out of the missile's engine despite the reflection of a bright pink shadow in the water. Bermudez said he seriously doubted that North Korea would be able to conduct a test from a submarine that was only launched last October. He did note, however, that the North has made incremental improvements in its submarine and ballistic missile capabilities. Seoul's Defense Ministry shares that view and has urged the North to cease its missile development. 손정인, Arirang News.
Now, we have some news just coming in. 2 soldiers have been killed and 3 wounded in a shooting at a reservist training camp in southern Seoul. And 2 of the 3 soldiers are said to be in critical condition. A military official said that the shooter committed suicide shortly after the attack. We'll have more details on this story in our later newscasts. Now, President Park Geun-hye has urged the government to speed up the country's financial reforms in order to minimize the burden on the public and support efforts to revitalize the Korean economy. At an annual financial strategy meeting, the president directed officials to review state projects from square one when putting together the budget this year and to eliminate those found to be invalid or redundant. The president also stressed the need to maximize the effectiveness of state spending. She also called for better management of Korea's mid to long-term budget, especially as the country's population is aging rapidly and demand for welfare is on the rise. And President Park has been touting the importance of economic diplomacy, reflected in her recent visits to the Middle East and South America. Gwon-soa has this report.
The Korean economy can only develop by continuously reaching out into the global market. This is what President Park Geun-hye stressed at a meeting on economic diplomacy on Tuesday, attended by key economic organizations and related ministries.
우리는 좁은 내수 시장의 한계를 극복하기 위해서 경제 개발 초기 단계부터 수출 주도형 성장 전략을 적극적으로 추진해 왔습니다. 그때뿐 아니라 지금도 대한민국의 운명은 이렇게 국내뿐만 아니라 세계 시장으로 눈을 돌려야만 발전할 수 있다고 생각을 합니다.
President Park's focus on economic diplomacy was reflected in her trips to the Middle East and South America, which secured $6.4 billion in the first half of the year and included the signing of an IT MOU worth $14 million annually. To further expand on these accomplishments, the president proposed 3 main directives. She said small and mid-sized companies should play a leading role in exports. New industries with high added value have to be explored, and exports in manpower, culture, and software need to be strengthened. President Park pointed out that just 34% of exports come from SMEs, and less than 3% of SMEs in the country export their goods. She said with Korea having the 3rd largest FTA network, many doors are now open, but that the country should not sit back but take on new challenges in the global arena. Gwon-soa, Arirang News.
And at that meeting, President Park also touched upon the importance of exporting Korea's cultural contents. Expected to lead the charge is the channel you're watching right now, Korea's only fully English broadcasting station, Arirang TV. Our Connie Kim takes a closer look.
During Tuesday's economic diplomacy meeting, President Park Geun-hye highlighted a recent study that showed when $100 worth of cultural products are shipped out, exports of consumer goods will jump by more than $400. In line with this and the growing importance of cultural content, Arirang TV is vowing to be at the forefront of promoting Korean culture overseas.
Moving beyond K-pop, we plan to create programs that incorporate information and communications technologies and use animation, internet-based games, and educational content to reach over 100 million households.
Arirang has already made inroads into the South American market, sealing an MOU with Brazil's Rede TV and Peru's America TV in April. The Culture Ministry is also backing the station's mission.
A Hallyu preparation committee led by civilians will be established in May. When the group is formed, Arirang TV is expected to help serve as an overseas promotion platform.
On the back of these business projects, Korea's only English broadcaster plans to continue to expand its distribution channels and become a provider of global programs. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Now, the job market for young people in Korea is an increasingly daunting place. The youth unemployment rate for April makes for bleak viewing, standing at 10.2%. According to Statistics Korea, that's the highest percentage recorded in the month of April since related records were first compiled back in 1999. In total, the number of people finding work last month rose by 216,000 on year. That's the lowest monthly rate of increase in more than 2 years. Statistics Korea attributed the slow growth to bad weather, as last month was the rainiest April in over 4 decades. People in Nepal are living in a state of fear after the country was slammed by yet another powerful earthquake on Tuesday. It came less than 3 weeks after Nepal was devastated by the first 7.8 magnitude tremor that killed more than 8,000 people. Kim Hyun-bin reports.
Authorities say the death toll from the latest quake has reached at least 68, while over 1,200 have been injured. The U.S. Geological Service says the second earthquake, measured at a magnitude of 7.3, struck near Mount Everest early Tuesday local time, and was followed by 2 separate aftershocks.
I felt really scared this time. I was afraid that what happened to my house or something, like hope nothing was happened in my home. So I just ran here. I was very scared at that time.
Nepal has been desperately trying to recover and rebuild ahead of the monsoon season, which starts next month. This latest quake adds to the fear and hardship residents have been going through since the first 7.8 magnitude quake struck on April 25th.
We have started to feel comfortable and everything has become normal, but today's massive earthquake makes us feel that our place is not safe anymore, so we decided to come back to this place, the open theater, where we were staying when the first quake happened.
Meanwhile, a U.S. military helicopter sent to support relief efforts in Nepal has gone missing with 8 people, including 6 U.S. Marines on board. The Pentagon says it hopes the chopper made a safe emergency landing, as a U.S. aerial search before nightfall did not find any trace of a crash site. Helping with the relief efforts, the Korean government says it will send an emergency response team to Nepal on Wednesday. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Now, you may be familiar with the term Brexit, shorthand for Greece exiting the European Union. Hasn't happened yet, but might do. But what about Brexit? Putting the decision over Britain's possible withdrawal from the EU into the hands of the British people was one of the key pledges of David Cameron's Conservative Party, which secured an overall majority in last week's election. If Britain decides it wants out, how will this impact the global economy and how might it affect Korea as well? Shin Se-min reports.
In or out? The question of Britain's membership to the European Union hangs over the heads of many after the Conservative Party Prime Minister David Cameron won another 5 years in office in last week's general election. By leaving the EU, Eurosceptic Conservative MPs believe the country will be able to reduce the jobless rate at home and help British citizens get jobs that would otherwise go to Europeans who travel to UK for work. They are also opposed to the amount of control Brussels exercises over Britain's domestic political and economical affairs. But if Britain decides to go, where would that leave other economies, not only in the EU, but even further afield?
European economy will be unstable as the capital market and the real economy will be hit hard. The impact might get carried on to Korean economy, also as Seoul has been benefiting from the UK's financial services industry.
A German think tank estimated that a Brexit scenario could bring down the UK's GDP by $350 billion, a 14% cut by 2030. EU member states with weak economies like Ireland and Belgium would also suffer badly. Even Germany, one of the EU's strongest economies, could see an up to 0.3% reduction in its GDP. With the risks attached, experts say it's highly unlikely Britain will opt to leave the EU.
Most British people, when asked the question, will probably vote to stay in, primarily because most British people, I think, see it as a risk that doesn't really need to be taken. On the other hand, I should just say that accidents can happen. This referendum will probably take place in mid-term when the government is unpopular. Who knows what can happen?
신세민, Arirang News.
Now, before we go, just an update on that story about the shooting at a military camp here in Seoul. 2 soldiers have been killed. The shooter, we think, has committed suicide, so he killed 1 other soldier and then turned the gun on himself. 3 people injured. We now know that 1 is in critical condition. We'll have more on this story throughout the day on our later newscast. But for now, that's all we have for this newscast. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.